ये है राम पुनियानी साहब हैं, बहुत अच्छे स्पीकर हैं। उन्होंने बताया है कि ये औरंगजेब रहमतुल्लाह अलैह, ये सत्ता की लड़ाई थी, संपत्ति की लड़ाई थी, इसमें धर्म का कोई लेना देना नहीं था। अगर हिंदू बहुत प्रताड़ित था, बहुत परेशान था उनके, तो उनके राज में 34% हिंदुओं को क्यों रखा था अपने करीब उन्होंने, और हिंदुओं से नफरत करते थे तो उनका 60% मुसलमान हिंदू क्यों था। और उन्होंने मस्जिद भी तोड़ी है, मंदिर भी तोड़ी है, किस पे बहस की जाए। लेकिन उन्होंने गुवाहाटी में, आसाम में गुवाहाटी के पास कामाख्या देवी मंदिर को भी उन्होंने फंड दिया है। तो अगर वो हिंदुओं के खिलाफ थे तो वहाँ क्यों फंड दिया उन्होंने। तब गलत हिस्ट्री दिखाई जा रही है। औरंगजेब रहमतुल्लाह अलैह ने बहुत सारी मंदिरें बनवाई हैं। बिल्कुल नहीं, मैं बिल्कुल क्रूर शासन नहीं मानता। मैं एक ही बात बोलूँगा, औरंगजेब के ज़माने में भारतवर्ष जो है सोने की चिड़िया था। हमारी सरहद जो है अफगानिस्तान बर्मा तक बढ़ी हुई थी, समझा आपने। और इसी को देख कर अंग्रेज यहाँ आया था, एक इंसाफ पसंद बादशाह था वो।
Viewers, so much has been written and spoken about Aurangzeb over the last few days. He was a ruler who razed temples, imposed the humiliating Jizya on non-Muslims and crushed dissent with an iron fist. He was a bigot whose legacy is stained with the blood of those who dared to differ. A despot who saw diversity not as strength but as a threat to be extinguished. Yet there are those in India, in our country, Bharat, who've spent decades polishing this tarnished relic, spinning a narrative of complexity to whitewash crimes of Aurangzeb. Why should India honor or guard the legacy of such a tyrant? The answer is simple: it should not. The apologists who glorify him must be exposed for the intellectual frauds they are. For years, a coterie of historians, intellectuals and political opportunists has tried hard to rehabilitate this tyrant. They drape him in euphemisms like he was austere, he was a devout, misunderstood, etc., etc. It is as if sanctimony can erase the streams of the persecuted. Viewers, they cherry-pick anecdotes of his occasional leniency, ignore the overwhelming evidence of his cruelty to argue he wasn't all that bad. Viewers, textbooks gloss over his atrocities, reducing them to footnotes or mere mentions, while streets and monuments bearing his name stand as perverse tributes to a man who despised the very syncretism India embodies. This is not scholarship, viewers, it's propaganda, a deliberate attempt to sanitize a bigot for the sake of a warped ideological agenda. Viewers, who are these apologists? They are the gatekeepers of a crumbling narrative clinging to a distorted secularism that demands the exaltation of oppressors to avoid offending certain sensibilities, you see. They are the netas who see vote banks in valorizing figures like Aurangzeb. They are the academics who twist history into knots, pretending Aurangzeb's reign was a golden age of governance rather than a dark chapter of division. Viewers, let's strip away the drama of so-called nuance and call Aurangzeb what he was, a tyrant who ruled through fear, not wisdom. Let's expose his cheerleaders for what they are, enablers of a lie that insults the memory of his victims. India owes nothing to this tyrant. No statues, no streets, no softened narratives, retellings. Bharat owes its people the truth, unvarnished, unapologetic, and free of any distortions. Viewers, let's introduce Aabhas Maldahiyar, author, needs no introduction. Dr. Ranganathan stays on. Aabhas, I'm sure you are aware of what's been said about Aurangzeb. He was responsible for making India sone ki chidiya.
Yes, and many more. But the irony is that I may like to start with this point that this was the glorious Mughal period, so-called Mughal period, wherein the GDP per capita of India was negative. The growth of GDP per capita was negative, -1. Even in British era, we were not so bad. Of course, it was bad. We are not trying to make British holier than this Mughals, but surely it was terrible. And the people who sing the apologia to Aurangzeb must take a note of it, that if you open, even like we have spoken and discussed a lot about his farman about Kashi Vishwanath Mandir and many others, but there are many other things which people don't talk about, like his fatwa-e-Alamgiri. Once you open that text, you will be taken aback that this man is legalizing the sex slavery of the Kafir woman. It's the Fatwa-e-Alamgiri Volume 3, talks exclusively about it. And they're the female scholars who come on to sing apologia to a man like Aurangzeb, who did the worst to the Sikh gurus, who did the worst to Samaji Maharaj. Now, again, when we talk about Samaji Maharaj, they will bring the literature where Sambhaji is shown in a bad light. But even there was a lot of politics brewing that why Sambhaji was portrayed the certain way. It was the same court historians of Aurangzeb who were trying to vilify Shah Jahan. Also in the later period, they wrote all the things about Sambhaji Maharaj, but the truth remains very different. And his Farmans and his Akbar speak aloud for it. And in fact, if we get a bit of time, I can in fact talk also about that, why he had put in a few Hindus into his court. What was that period? And
no, that's important. Please elaborate. I'm sure, Dr. Ranganathan भी सुनना चाहेंगे, not that he doesn't know, but viewers को ये WhatsApp messages, Twitter threads ये आ जाते हैं आधे उसमें उनको यही बोला जाता है. There are many people वो बोलेंगे कि नहीं देखिए, there were Hindus also in his team, तो वो secular था, etc.
Yes. So maybe that it will be good to start with that itself, Pranesh. And so let me just give the background that Aurangzeb had already got rid of Dhara Shikoh, and it's the year is 1659. And he is going to also now get rid of the other person who is Shuja. Shuja is another son of him, brother of him, who is moved to the Kashi, and he is very sure that he wants to break all the Hindu alliance which may come up for Shuja. So to do this, he is trying to sedate the Hindus and create some kind of alliance. He wants to keep the Hindus still a bit happy. So a bit of donations do come to the Hindu temples. A bit of temples are taken care of. And also at the same time, as far as the court of Aurangzeb is considered, is to be taken in account. This process was going on from the time of Akbar. Akbar had a lot of Hindus in the court. It carried on, it went ahead. And so to bring a drastic change was not going to be so easy. And later on, after 1659, say around 2-3 years after that, the farmans are issued where all the Hindu courtiers are taken out of the court. They don't no more exist. They are completely thrown away. And these are again coming from the primary text, the Akbars and the Farmans. This is not something which are manufactured WhatsApp stories. So it was just to garner a bit of Hindu support in the initial days, because Kashi was the god of the Hindus. It was not going to be easy to outdo Shuja. And in order to build his candidature as a more of a stronger of the emperor as he need to be, that's the reason why he started to flirt around with the Hindus. That was the only reason. And later on, what happens is the testimony in itself. Like we all know that what follows next.
Dr. Ranganathan, we've had many discussions on Aurangzeb. I want you to ask a direct question. What do we do of what's left of him? I'm not talking about the symbolism. वो तो जाने में समय लगेगा, but the grave that the ASI is guarding, वो कब तक रहेगा, sir?
Pranesh, first of all, it's a real joy to be on the same panel as Abad, and you as well. To answer your question very directly, let's be very honest about it. We are a weak and a cowardly state. There is no doubt about it. Our governments may change, but our attitude remains the same. It is to cushion barbarism that has been perpetrated against Hindus for centuries, possibly for 1,000 years. So BJP, Congress, any other party, we remain a weak state. Now, I exemplify this by a couple of statements. It is honestly, I'll be no disrespect to you. It's a wonderful discussion that we are going to have. But the fact is, would you ever see such a debate happening in Germany, where the title is, was Hitler good? You never would. I mean, you would possibly find some demented psychopaths taking that reasoning that yes, Hitler also did something good. Because after all, the economy under Nazi rule was also doing much better than what it was previously before the World Depression. After all, there were many Jews in Hitler's army as well, in Hitler's military. There were many Jews who fought alongside. So, by that logic, Would you brush away or airbrush the 6 million Jews who were murdered by Hitler in the Holocaust? To be honest, they still are Holocaust deniers. But what does Germany do with Holocaust deniers? There is a crime. It is considered as a crime, and there is punishment lasting up to 6 years in jail for anyone who either celebrates Nazism or denies the Holocaust. Out here, it's the opposite. We eulogize those historians who deny the Holocaust of Hindus at the instance of Aurangzeb, who killed 4.6 million Hindus. We celebrate those historians who celebrate the rule of Aurangzeb. It's the other way around. So we are a weak state. And do you know, in Germany, Hitler was buried in an unmarked grave. Even his parents, their graves do not have tombstones, for the happenstance that somebody might go there and recognize them. But out here, we are eulogizing Aurangzeb. We have a mazar, we have a grave, we have a margrave. People go and worship there. The Owasis go there routinely and worship Aurangzeb. This is the problem in our country, where you have double standards. And the double standards exist only because Hindus are kosher to be beaten about with a stick. This is the reality.
Aabhas, when you hear comments like, one from Abu Azmi, there were many in Samajwadi Party who said that, Aurangzeb organized Kumbh. पहला ख्याल क्या आता है आपको?
Well, see, I'm happy to be called a WhatsApp historian because WhatsApp में at least हम media share कर सकते हैं, तो things will be authentic. This is the SMS university where you can't even share the media. They are too much backwards in terms of even sharing the knowledge. They are creating the stories like when the whole issue of the Kashi was going through. We heard the stories that why Kashi temple was demolished. They had all the stories of the Hindu Brahmins were molesting the women, the female folks, and that's the reason why Aurangzeb, the great Aurangzeb, came and he cared so much for the Rajput princess or the queen that he just demolished the temple and halfway demolished whatsoever. Many came up with the stories that it was just an example of the new faith which was founded by Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar, Deen-e-Ilahi. So we hear such stories, but when Aurangzeb was dying, he said one thing which can iron out the whole controversy if one is very careful to think that what it would mean. So Aurangzeb had told very clearly that so I die happy. At least the world will be able to say that I have employed every effort to destroy the enemies of the Mohammedan faith. Now, who are the enemies of the Mohammedan faith? They are certainly the people whom they are calling kafirs. So when we pick up any of this Persian text in the translated form, we use the word infidels, but the word which is used in the original manuscripts is all kafir. And they have the hatred for the kafir. And in fact, there is an instance where some people come to Aurangzeb and they mention that there is a temple in Agra where, the people just give monthly taxes, the normal taxes from their earning, and it's very nominal, but they are still continuing the faith. So Aurangzeb frowns upon it and he says that it's a problem. We should go back to our canon law. When I say canon law, it's definitely Islamic law. And again, people need to go back and check what this is. It is about the Pact of Umar. Pact of Umar. Umar is one of the earliest caliphs of the Islam who has laid down the concept that how you will live with the people of the book. People of the book as in the Jews and the Christians who also have the book. But later on, this dimitude is passed on to the Hindus too, wherever they went. And the idea was that, okay, take the jizya from them. They will be discouraged to practice the faith, but at the same time, we will enhance our treasury, right? So, yes. So that by that policy, Aurangzeb again reinstated the jizya. And apart from jizya, he also had the policies of post-extortion in the way that there were forced production. Like in the regions of Bengal, his governors used to make people do the forced production of certain crops. They will be doing overtime, and these all are recorded by great historian Irfan Habib. So, you did not go back to even so-called right-wing historians if people may call us out. But if you pick the works of Irfan Habib, there is a very interesting work. It's called Cambridge Economy, Cambridge History.
No, but you see, Abbas, who's interested in facts when you can have your own way by peddling, half-truths and propaganda? Dr. Ranganathan is saying something.
No, I was just saying to all those people who say, look, that was the time when you had kings and kings committed barbarism and atrocity across, it was religion agnostic. To that I say, bring me an example where Aurangzeb levied jizya or tax on Muslims. Bring me examples where Aurangzeb destroyed mosques by the thousands. Don't bring me one example, as you were saying, showed leniency or showed the opposite effect to what was expected of Aurangzeb, the so-called Golconda mosque being destroyed. That was a siege, and that too because Aurangzeb was told that those people out there, the Nawabs were actually sultans, were helpful and sympathetic towards kafir. So there was an extra ire for Aurangzeb to go ahead and do it. Read Masir Alamgiri, read all those authentic texts of Aurangzeb, what Abbas is also talking about. The barbarism of Aurangzeb is not in question. The barbarism exclusively against non-Muslims is not in question. But then again, I ask you, at least in this country, small mercies, we don't celebrate Aurangzeb Jayanti. I don't know for how long we don't do that. Maybe we'll start doing that.
No, that's okay. We don't have a day. No, we don't have a day and a date. But there are people like Owaisi Jr. who still go and do it, venerate him,
Yes,
go to his grave. And I don't blame Owaisi Jr. Why do we have a place where he can go? I mean, imagine not giving dead bodies of terrorists like Qassab. Osama got a sea burial. Here we have someone who was 100 times more cruel and, killed more people, had more blood on his hand than the individuals that we are talking about. Yet he is celebrated. And to the question you asked about jizya on Muslims, Owaisi would say, look, just as Muslims don't have money now, they are economically backward. उस समय भी नहीं था, इसीलिए नहीं लेते थे वो.
He would have asked कि Aurangzeb should have taken some OBC quota and given it to Muslims.
Yeah. But Abbas, you've written a book on Babur. आप औरंगजेब तक कब तक आएंगे?
So looking at the thing, I was thinking that I will skip Akbar for now. Maybe I will jump to Aurangzeb as once the Babur 2 is done. So maybe Babur 2 के बाद Aurangzeb and then I will go back to Akbar. Because I thought that it will be good to bring all the facts together around Aurangzeb.
I disagree, Abbas, because you see, the problem is Aurangzeb, at least 90% of us know, was a barbarian. People don't know the truth about Akbar. Still in this country, Akbar is held aloft as a secular great king, pro-Hindu. So you need to demolish that fake narrative first. So please go according to chronology that you were expected to.
Chronology समझिए आप उसका ध्यान रखिए और राहुल ईश्वर तो जरूर बुलाएंगे अकबर वाले बुक के लॉन्च पे. But बोलिए, you were saying something. Go ahead.
Yeah, so, and what's very interesting is that the concept of jizya, which exists in Islam, is more like extortion, what a mafia does to you. Say that, when you will read about jizya in a good Islamic magazines of a current period, which run around a democratic society like Milli Gadget and whatnot. So they will say that jizya was a tax levied for the protection. The sawal ye aata protection from whom, right? So even when you read about the history of the Jews, and they bring this notion of jizya, that it was for the protection of them, and in the Ottoman Empire, suddenly the Jews were living a very good life because they could at least live their faith by the virtue of the jizya. Now, imagine that the gunda is coming to your house and telling that, okay, I will let you live, live you in a house, eat what you want to eat, wear what you eat, just keep paying me this and this tax. So jizya is absolutely a gundaism. And we saw it in Bangladesh too.
But even after all these accounts, documented accounts, Aurangzeb was not all that cruel, quote unquote. One just hopes, Dr. Ranganathan, by next year, this time, or by next Holi, at least the grave is gone, or the ASI cover from the grave goes, whether or not the grave is buried. I thank both of you for joining us on India Upfront. Viewers, a happy Holi once again.